You know all about Banff National Park and Jasper National Park, but now you keep hearing about Yoho National Park and how it's a must visit. If you're planning a trip to Banff and wondering whether you should add a day or two in Yoho to your itinerary, this episode is going to show you exactly why the answer is yes and how to make the most of your time there. Welcome back to the Banff Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Celine Brewer. I live just outside Banff National Park, and today we're venturing west into British Columbia to explore Yoho National Park, a place that honestly blows me away every single time I visit. Yoho might be the smallest of the Canadian Rocky Mountain National Parks, but what it lacks in size, it more than makes up for in spectacle. While Banff gets somewhere between 4 and 5 million visitors a year, Yoho sees closer to 600,000 visitors. That means you get similar jaw-dropping scenery with significantly fewer crowds. Now, Yoho is famous for a few specific things. First, the waterfalls. Takakkaw Falls is the second highest waterfall in Canada, and Wapta Falls is one of the largest by volume in the Rockies. Second, Emerald Lake, which might just be one of the most photographed lakes in the Canadian Rockies, after Lake Louise and Rain Lake, of course. And third, Lake O'Hara, which is widely considered one of the most beautiful alpine destinations anywhere in the world, though getting there requires some serious luck or determination, which we'll talk about later. To drive from Banff to Yoho takes you west along the Trans-Canada Highway through some stunning scenery. From Lake Louise, it's only about 15 minutes to the turnoff for Field, a small mountain town in Yoho National Park. You won't find too much in Field, but there are a few restaurants, some places to stay, and that quintessential mountain town charm. Now, here's something really important to know before you head into Yoho. Cell service is pretty much non-existent throughout most of the park. This means you need to download your maps, trails, and any information you need before you go. The All Trails app with offline maps is essential if you're going to do some hiking, and make sure you screenshot any important directions or details. Now let's get into some of the top places to visit in Yoho National Park. Let's start with Takakkaw Falls, because if you only do one thing in Yoho, this should probably be it, aside from maybe Emerald Lake. From the Trans-Canada Highway, you're going to turn onto Yoho Valley Road. Now, I need to warn you about something important here. There are two incredibly tight switchbacks on the road up to Takakkaw Falls. They're challenging even in a small car. And if you're driving anything over about 7 meters long, you'll need to reverse to make those turns. Trailers are absolutely not allowed, and there's a spot to drop off the trailers at the bottom of the road. Of course, also on that road, you're going to find lots of tour buses and other RVs, so take it easy and keep an eye out for anybody coming towards you on those switchbacks. Other than that, the road is easy to drive, and once you've navigated those switchbacks, the road opens up and you're treated to this spectacular view. Your first glimpse of Takakkaw Falls will be from the road as you approach the parking lot, and I promise you'll have one of those audible wow moments. It's just this massive, powerful, cascading, dropping down the mountainside. Now, the parking lot at Takakkaw Falls is not huge like many of the other places in the Canadian Rockies, and it does fill up fast during peak summer season. And really, there's no place where you can just wait. You may be circling the parking lot, but there's no overflow parking. So if you're visiting in July or August, you need to arrive early. Alternatively, visit in late afternoon or early evening. Once you park, you can technically see the falls from anywhere, but you absolutely should walk the short interpretive trail to the falls. The paved trail is about 800 meters, so about half a mile. It's completely accessible for strollers and wheelchairs. And as you walk, you'll pass by the Yoho River, which has this incredible milky turquoise color that comes from that glacial melt. You'll cross a beautiful bridge over the river, walk through a mountain forest, and then suddenly you're at the base of the Thundering Falls. The viewing area is paved and safe, and you'll absolutely feel that cold mist on your face, especially if it's a little bit windy. Now, you're probably going to see a lot of people climbing on the rocks and trying to get closer to the falls, so please, if you plan on doing this, take a lot of caution or just stay on the paved trail. You'll also find a pair of the red Adirondack chairs that Parks Canada has placed along the trail. They're positioned right before you cross the bridge with perfect views of the falls and the surrounding mountains. It's one of the best photo spots there, so be prepared to wait a few minutes for your turn. And just one other thing you need to know, Yoho Valley Road is only open seasonally, so typically from around mid-June through early October, and that's because of avalanche risk. Now, it can open sooner than that, and it can stay open later than that. Those are just guidelines. The exact dates vary each year depending on the conditions. So if you're visiting in early or late season, you want to check the Parks Canada website for any current road status. Now, if you're into more challenging hikes, the famous Iceline Trail begins right here at Takakkaw Falls. Again, one of those best alpine hikes in Yoho, but we're talking serious elevation gain and a full day commitment. Now, after Takakkaw Falls, you want to head to Emerald Lake. This lake is stunning. And I mean that even by Canadian Rockies standards. We're pretty spoiled with gorgeous lakes here. The drive from the Trans-Canada Highway to Emerald Lake is about 20 minutes on a good paved road. Once you leave the Trans-Canada Highway on your way to Emerald Lake, you're going to pass the Natural Bridge. This is a great place to stop. It only takes a few minutes to see it, but it's really cool. It's exactly what it sounds like, a natural rock bridge carved by the Kicking Horse River over thousands of years. Water has literally carved through solid bedrock, creating this bridge formation. You can park right beside it, so it's just a short little walk, and it's a quick stop, but worth seeing. Now back on the road, we're heading up to Emerald Lake. The color here really, truly is unreal. I know there's a lot of AI images or photoshopped images online, but you are going to be impressed with the water. And the lake is surrounded by mountains on all sides, creating kind of that intimate, protected feeling. Now, I need to give you the same parking warning I gave for Takakkaw Falls. Emerald Lake's parking lot fills up even faster, especially during peak season. So even though Yoho doesn't see as many visitors as Banff, this is honestly one of the most popular spots in the entire park. There's a good chance you may arrive and find that you're going to be parking all the way down the road. So my advice is to make Emerald Lake one of your first stops of the day if you're visiting on a busy summer day. Or again, visit late afternoon when things start to clear out. The main activities at Emerald Lake are canoeing. Canoe rentals are available right there at the boathouse, and a lot of people do actually prefer to canoe at Emerald Lake as it's much cheaper than at Lake Louise. Around the lake itself, the Emerald Lake Loop is around 5 kilometers. It's mostly flat. Now, the first half from the boathouse to the back of the lake is an easy walk. From there, as you pass on to the Emerald Lake Lodge side, and you'll see which side the Emerald Lake Lodge is on, you're going to find the trail to be much more rooty, and there's a good chance of it being muddy there. So if you don't do well on uneven footing, I would just do the first section as an out and back. So that's the side opposite of Emerald Lake Lodge. If you're up for a longer hike, also starting along the shores of Emerald Lake is the hike to Emerald Basin, or even longer is the Emerald Triangle for incredible views over the valley. And if you're lucky enough to be staying at Emerald Lake Lodge, enjoy that tranquil spot with those incredible views as you get to stay right on the shores of the lake. Now, moving further west from Emerald Lake, we get to Wapta Falls. Wapta Falls doesn't get nearly as much attention as Takakkaw, but it is absolutely worth adding to your Yoho day. This is one of the largest waterfalls by volume in the Canadian Rockies. It's wider and so powerful. Getting to the trailhead is a little bit tricky. So if you're driving west on the Trans-Canada Highway, there's no left turn onto the Wapta Falls Road. You're going to need to continue past the turnoff for about 5 minutes until you can exit onto Beaverfoot Road and then merge back onto eastbound Trans-Canada. That's where you can turn right into Wapta Falls Road. Now, once you turn off the highway, you're going to see a parking lot immediately. Don't make the mistake of parking there and walking from there. There's a gate there which should be open roughly from late May through October, and you can continue driving another 2 kilometers or so on a dirt road to the summer parking lot. Now, the road is pretty rough with some potholes, so take it easy in that rental car. The hike from that summer parking lot to Wapta Falls is roughly 4 kilometers return. Now, the first roughly 1.8 kilometers is remarkably easy. It's a wide, well-groomed trail through towering spruce and lodgepole pine forest, and it's almost completely flat. You get to an upper viewpoint that gives you a bird's eye view of the entire falls. Now, the viewpoint is fenced and it's safe, but still take some caution there. And then it starts to get a little interesting. If you want to continue down to the river level, there's a steep descent with multiple switchbacks. Now, it's not long, but it is a steep downhill. So you need to keep in mind you're going to have to climb back up that. Now, the payoff at the bottom is worth it, standing at the shores of the Kicking Horse River, looking up at that massive, powerful waterfall. For my hikers out there, Yoho has some other fantastic options depending on your fitness level and the amount of time you have. I've already mentioned the Emerald Lake Lakeshore Trail. It's perfect for families or anybody who wants a pleasant, easy walk. or go farther with the Emerald Triangle or Emerald Basin options. Sherbrooke Lake in Yoho National Park is another one I personally love. It's roughly 6 kilometers return from the parking lot. The parking lot is found on the Trans-Canada Highway. Now, this trail meanders through the forest with the occasional valley views, and it has kind of a rhythm where it climbs for a bit and then levels off for a bit, so it gives you a chance to catch your breath. It's nothing too steep or challenging, but the trail does start out quite rooty. Just know that it doesn't stay that way the whole time. Now, Sherbrooke Lake is stunning. Now, once you reach the lake, if you continue along the shores, and trust me, it's right along the shores of the lake, but if you continue past the back of the lake into the forest, the trail climbs a bit, and then there's this beautiful cascading waterfall, like a staircase of water. So that's definitely worth the extra effort. This whole hike is perfect for families with kids who like hiking. There's plenty of places to stop along the shore for a snack or a lunch, and the distance is totally manageable. For those experienced hikers, the Iceline Trail from Takakkaw Falls is pretty legendary. It's a challenging full-day hike with some serious elevation, but it takes you up into that alpine zone with glacier views and mountain vistas. Now, I'm not giving you an extensive list of all of the hikes. Just know there are some really great hiking options in Yoho National Park. And if you want any additional information on hiking or how to choose which hike, just send me a note. Now, this leads me to another really spectacular hiking option, which is Lake O'Hara, possibly one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I'm going to link to my resources on Lake O'Hara in the show notes. It's well worth taking a look. There's a lot of information, especially if you want to add Lake O'Hara to your itinerary. Now, Lake O'Hara is tucked away in its own mountain amphitheater, surrounded by towering peaks and pristine alpine lakes. It's the kind of place that has you stopping constantly just to take in the scenery. But here's the catch. Visiting Lake O'Hara is deliberately difficult. Parks Canada limits visitations to about 200 people per day to preserve the pristine alpine area. There are basically 4 ways to visit Lake O'Hara. First, you can try to win a reservation on the shuttle bus through their lottery system. Every spring in March, Parks Canada opens a lottery. You pay to enter, they draw winners, and if you're successful, you get a spot on the day bus. It costs money to enter the lottery, which is non-refundable even if you don't win. Second, you can try to book a camping spot at Lake O'Hara Campground. Reservations typically open in late January, but this year they have been postponed to February 10th. If you get camping reservations, you automatically get the shuttle bus spot as well. It's a great campground and what we'll refer to as backcountry camping light because you get a shuttle to the campground and only need to carry your gear a short ways. Third, you can stay at Lake O'Hara Lodge or Elizabeth Parker Hut, both of which include shuttle bus access, but getting reservations at either is also extremely difficult. And fourth, you can hike the 11-kilometer access road. No reservation needed, no limit on hikers, but it's 11 kilometers just one way with about 400 meters of elevation gain, and that's before you even get to start hiking the actual trails. Plus, you need to save some energy to hike those 11 kilometers back out. Bikes are not allowed on this trail. Plenty of people do it, but it's a serious commitment. If you really want to hike up there, the other options are better. You can bring some cash and you have a chance of getting on the shuttle bus back if there's space, but you can't count on that. If you do make it to Lake O'Hara by any of these methods, the hiking is absolutely world class. The alpine circuit is a must, and really the scenery is just another level. My honest advice, if you must see it, you can plan to walk the road. Just know that the most spectacular scenery doesn't start when you reach Lake O'Hara. It's from all of the other trails past there. So only do this if you're truly a strong hiker and can handle that distance. Otherwise, take a chance, enter the lottery, but know that if it doesn't work out, there are plenty other incredible places to visit. If you're really hoping for that day bus, one other option is to use a website like Sherp, where you can sign up to get notifications if any day bus spots open up. So if somebody makes a cancellation. So I'll leave a link to that in the show notes as well. Truthfully, Yoho is just full of some really, really incredible places. Something else unique that a lot of visitors don't know is Yoho is home to one of the most important fossil sites in the world, the Burgess Shale. Parks Canada offers guided hikes up to the Burgess Shale fossil beds, where you can see these 500 million year old fossils. The Burgess Shale is actually part of why Yoho is designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now, there are 2 guided hikes in Yoho, one that leads from the Takakkaw Falls parking lot to the Walcott Quarry, and one to Mount Stephen from Field. Both are challenging hikes, but well worth it. We did the 24-kilometer hike to Walcott Quarry last summer, and the scenery was amazing, and learning about the Burgess Shale was fantastic. But just know that it's a long day. Now, this is the second guided hike we've done with Parks Canada, and they are always so well done. The guides are so incredibly knowledgeable, and I highly recommend doing one of these if you have an opportunity. So how do you actually structure your time in Yoho? I've filled your brain with all of these amazing places to go. So let me walk you through a few different scenarios, depending on how much time you have and what kind of experience you're looking for. For a one-day Yoho visit, focusing on the main highlights, I recommend leave early from Banff or Lake Louise, drive straight to Takakkaw Falls, and be there right when things open up. You'll have the falls mostly to yourself. Spend about an hour here walking the trail and soaking it all in, and then head to Emerald Lake. If you're interested in canoeing, rent one and spend an hour on the water. I always love the lakes in the morning when it's calm. Or do the Lakeshore Loop Trail, grab lunch, either from a packed picnic lunch or at Emerald Lake Lodge. Stop briefly at the Natural Bridge on your way towards Wapta Falls. Again, that's literally a 10 to 15 minute stop. Then hike Wapta Falls. That's a full spectacular day in Yoho that hits all the major highlights with some fairly easy hiking. Then head back to Banff or Lake Louise for dinner. You can also stop at the Spiral Tunnels viewpoint, which is right off the Trans-Canada Highway. The spiral tunnels are an engineering marvel from the early 1900s, built to help trains navigate the steep grades of the Rocky Mountains. So if you love trains, this is definitely worth a stop. But I would leave it towards the end of the day since you don't really need to worry as much about parking. Now, if you're a hiker and you want to do some of the longer trails, you need to plan differently. For the Iceline Trail, that needs to be your entire day. You'd want to start early, spend the whole day hiking, and that's it. This is not something you add to a day of also seeing Emerald Lake and Takakkaw Falls. Though, of course, you'll get to see Takakkaw Falls since you'll be right there. If you want to hike Sherbrooke Lake or do other moderate hikes, I'd still suggest a 2-day Yoho itinerary. Day 1 could be for Takakkaw Falls, Emerald Lake, Natural Bridge, and maybe Wapta Falls. It would be your scenic drive and short walks day, and then day 2 could be dedicated to hiking. And if you somehow win the Lake O'Hara lottery or camping reservations, that becomes your primary focus for the entire day. Lake O'Hara deserves a full day or more. You'll want to take the morning bus in if you can, hike multiple trails around the area, and take the latest bus out. So obviously everything else in Yoho would be on a second day. The key thing to remember about planning your Yoho days is that parking and crowds can be real issues at the 2 main attractions, Takakkaw Falls and especially Emerald Lake. So you either need to arrive early or plan to visit later in the afternoon or evening. Now let me share some practical tips to help make your Yoho visit smoother and safer. First, cell service that I already mentioned earlier. This is really important. You're going to lose cell service and you want to download your offline maps before you leave. For example, All Trails for trail maps and Google Maps for navigation. Take any screenshots of important information that you might need or reservations. And let someone know your plans before you head into areas without service, especially if you're off doing an all-day hike. As always, weather changes fast in the mountains. Even in the summer, it can be cool and rainy and misty at the waterfalls. So, as always, bring a warm layer, bring a rain jacket. Bear safety is critical in Yoho National Park, so carry bear spray on any hikes, keep it accessible, not buried in your backpack, and make noise on the trails. Always check the Parks Canada Trail Report before you go for any wildlife warnings or trail closures. Now, Parks Canada has water use restrictions in Yoho that you need to know about. You can't swim, wade, or use any personal watercraft, including paddleboards, canoes, kayaks, or even floaties, in any of the Yoho rivers or streams. The only exception to this is Emerald Lake, where you can canoe using only the rental canoes provided by Emerald Lake Lodge. This is to protect the sensitive aquatic ecosystems. So if you're thinking about taking a dip in the Kicking Horse River or bringing your own kayak to Emerald Lake, that's not allowed. You can find all the details on the Parks Canada website, and I'd recommend checking it before you go. Now, at this time, those restrictions are only in place until March of 2026, but last year they were extended for an additional calendar year. So you definitely want to check because that could very likely happen again. Finally, bring plenty of water and snacks. There aren't too many places to buy food once you're exploring the park, with the exception of Field and Emerald Lake Lodge, so pack more food and water than you think you'll need. If you want to spend more time in Yoho National Park, there are a few options for places to stay like Emerald Lake Lodge, Cathedral Mountain Lodge, and a few options in Field. You can also stay in Lake Louise, which is really only 20 minutes from Field and has obviously more options for lodging and restaurants. Golden is another mountain town that's about 45 minutes west of Field, and you'll find plenty of, again, restaurants and lodging options in Golden. For camping, there are a few Parks Canada campgrounds in Yoho. So Kicking Horse Campground, Monarch Campground are good for exploring. There's also the walk-in Takakkaw Falls Campground, which gives you easy access to the Iceland Trail. There's a number of backcountry campgrounds. And then, of course, the Lake O'Hara Campground, which is the hardest to book, but also an incredible experience. Now, Yoho might be small, but it really packs in some spectacular scenery between Takakkaw Falls, Emerald Lake, Natural Bridge, Wapta Falls, and the chance of visiting Lake O'Hara. Yoho absolutely deserves at least one full day of your Banff trip. Whether you add it as a day trip or stay overnight, I promise Yoho will give you some of those wow moments that you came to the Canadian Rockies to experience. Just remember, download your maps, arrive early at popular spots, and respect those water use restrictions. Now, if you want help planning your Banff and Yoho itinerary, you can check out my 3, 7, or 10-day Banff itineraries that include Yoho, or book a one-on-one travel consultation with me. I love helping people plan their perfect Canadian Rockies adventure, and Yoho is always one of my favorite places to recommend. Thanks for listening to the Banff Travel Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please follow the show so you don't miss a future episode. And if you have questions about visiting Yoho, head to banfftravelplanning.com/podcast and send them in. Until next time, happy trip planning, and I'll see you on the trails.